Hello, everyone, and today I'm going to recap the game that happened between Tampa Bay and Minnesota on Sunday. I am sorry this is coming out late, but I'm going to quickly talk about our offense. And Keenum actually surprised me a lot. I didn't expect him to actually play well. I thought as long as he was in the lineup, we would have a pretty downside of things. And he was 25 of 33 for 369 yards with 3 touchdowns, no picks, and like 11.3 yards like average per attempt. So that surprised me a lot. So it looks like as long as we can keep him clean, it was good. And then as far as rushing goes, Dalvin Cook led them in yards and attempts by a long shot. He led the next guy by 21 attempts, and that was Case Keenum just taking off on his own. So with 6 attempts. So Dalvin had 27 attempts, only for 97 yards, which can be slightly concerning. He had the touchdown with a long of 26. He had a 3.6 average, which is down from the other 2 weeks when we saw him go for 5.3 and 5.8. But obviously, that's not necessarily a completely sustainable thing to keep going. And he leads them by far and away because the other two backs had 4 combined carries for 10 yards between McKinnon and Murray. So it's Dalvin's job basically to be the workhorse back because they were also using him quite a bit in the passing game as well. He was pretty good in pass protection again, and then you have he had 5 receptions on 5 targets for 72 yards with that swing screen. It looked like they threw to him, so they want to give him the ball. He so I think this is a good sign for Dalvin, especially the 5 receptions because we saw him drop a few early. So it looks like all those kind of like jitters, you could say, are out. So that's good. And then, as long as we're talking about receptions, we had Diggs who went off in this game. He had 8 receptions and 11 targets for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns, with obviously his long being that 59-yard touchdown that he was able to not mess up at the end. And he almost did because he was holding the ball out. He almost did a Deshaun Jackson's or Marcus Cooper, if you were watching throughout the game. Thielen was the second leading receiver. He had 5 receptions on 8 targets for 98 yards, no touchdown, and that 45-yard bomb basically to start the game, which I think helped Keenum a lot in this game. I think that really calmed him down a little bit, just knowing he can do it, and well, in this offense anyway. And then you have Cook, which I already went over with the 5 receptions and the 72 yards. And then Rudolph surprisingly only ended the game with 1 reception for 4 yards. Not a score, but just 4 yards. That's not like Kyle. So that's a little interesting. And then you have Treadwell, who's pretty much marked on here just because he's Treadwell and we used a first round pick on him. So he only had 1 reception for 2 yards. Pretty Treadwell esque. And then if we move over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, or lack of a rushing offense, I shall say, they had 26 total yards of rushing offense. Now, I know part of that's going to be the fact that we jumped out to an early lead on them, but 26 yards? That's kind of insane. And then Winston he had a few yards himself, though, throwing. He had 328 yards. He was 28 of 42 touch with 3 picks. We got 3 interceptions. Our first time getting a turnover this year, and we ended up timesing it by 3 by getting 3. So that was nice. I wanted to touch on Evans, who was targeted 12 times. He caught 7 receptions for only 67 yards. And this is exactly why we pay Xavier Rhodes the last 2 weeks, basically, between Antonio Brown and Xavier and Mike Evans. Not bad. But between those 2 guys, that's exactly why we pay Xavier Rhodes the $70 million, to make sure those 2 guys don't ruin the game for us. And then, because they actually had 2 receivers above him in terms of yards, and that's Deshaun Jackson with 84 and Adam Humphries with 68. So it's not bad, not bad. And Deshaun Jackson did have the one longer touchdown for 32 yards, which does concern me, but I will touch on that in just a little bit because I do think we saw some promising signs from the defense in this, like mainly the safe, like the turnovers basically is what I'm talking about when I say that, because it seemed like I don't know, the defense still looks good, but it feels like it's lacking something that it had last year, and I think that's the turnovers. And pretty much it seemed like we had more people getting sacks as Everson now has 4, and now Shamar Stephen's the only other guy with 1. So it feels like we're missing those big plays, but we're very consistent. So I would like to see some more bigger plays, even if that means we have to give up some other big plays, just because I think that can really change the tone of a game. So I would like to see that. I do like the improvement on the rushing because all 3 weeks the rushing defense last year was kind of like our Achilles heel. Like sometimes it would just break a big run. Like we kept Le'Veon Bell under 90 yards with 87 yards, and he had like 3.2 yards on an average, I believe. So having that done like that last year, it seemed like they would just pound us like that. And Pittsburgh has a line that will it's a big, nasty mauling line. So having him under 90 is really impressive, even though he's probably breaking off some rust. But, and then you go week 1, where I think we only allowed 60 rushing yards total between Kamara, Ingram, and Adrian. So now we got this with 26. Not bad. Not bad at all. What I do get concerned with is feels like chunk plays are this defense's Achilles heel now. If we look at it, like it seemed kind of like they were consistently getting 15 to 20 yards, and then he would kind of bail us out with an interception in this game. And then the other thing is the deep ball. The deep ball has actually killed us in all 3 games at one point because we have Trey Waynes in the first game with Tommy Lee Lewis. That was a 52-yard bomb that was caught on him. The second game, they abused it against Trey Waynes, against Martavis Bryant. So that beat us a couple times. And then this past week, we had Deshaun Jackson, who kind of beat Tremaine Brock a little bit. He looked confused of what he didn't locate the ball, and he didn't also use the sideline as an extra defender as you would expect a veteran would of his caliber. So that was a little concerning, and I kind of am questioning if the deep ball defense this year is what's going to be the Achilles heel for this team, which is kind of weird considering that that's kind of the cardinal sin of defense, and this is a good defense. So I would think that hopefully they can get that fixed. If not, this is a very, very good defense. But that's really the only perks I have on it is deep ball defense, and then you have I want to see some more splash plays. I know that's not necessarily a necessity thing because it's working, but I would love to see more splash plays in this defense. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was just the O-line play in this game cannot be remiss. They played very well, and sometimes like up the middle you could see Easton Elfline kind of not work as well in the run game, but I think that's because Easton, I don't think has a high ceiling on him anyway. I think he's more of a backup guy anyway, so he's more of a 1-year plug-in unless Danny Isidora can take that spot from him. And then Elfline, we can expect some struggles from him a little early on just because he's a rookie center and he has to make all of the calls on the line. So I would expect Elfline to get better. Easton's probably what he is, even though he's young. And then the one thing I want to mention, I have 2 more things I really want to mention in this, and that's Laquan Treadwell. When do we become concerned with Laquan? Because last year it was kind of like, oh, injuries, okay, then he'll bounce back next year. He's still not a prominent part of this offense at all. Like, I would argue right now, Jarius Wright is still ahead of him on the depth chart. And then we're only going to get Michael Floyd back. And then, so one of those 2 guys is probably going to get be healthy scratch pretty often between Jarius Wright and Laquan Treadwell, and my money's on Laquan Treadwell. So I don't know how this works. So when Michael Floyd comes back, is Treadwell not even there? Does he not even travel with the team anymore when we have road games? Like, because he has the obviously the name value, but does he doesn't have any production with him. So I'm starting to think probably not. I don't think he's that great for this because obviously Jarius Wright had the one touchdown. They were using him instead of Treadwell. So I would imagine, even though they're totally different kind of receivers, and they kind of had it on the edge, but that's something pretty much any receiver can do because that was more of a distraction, misdirection type of thing on that play. So I think we need to start getting concerned with Laquan Treadwell. And then with how well Keenum did play, if Bradford can't go again and he starts another solid game against Detroit next week, do we have a quarterback controversy between Keenum and Bradford of all people? I know it sounds a little weird just because it's Keenum and Bradford, but I think there might be. If he's playing well, Bradford's coming off this knee injury, as is Teddy, which we'll get into later, I assume. And then I don't know, because you don't want to mess up with a groove at quarterback. So it would be kind of weird to have all this quarterback mess if Keenum actually ended up being our starting quarterback, if he were to actually play well over this next 2 or 3 games. So that would be it's just something to kind of keep an eye on, not necessarily something it's kind of more of a thought than it is an actual thing. So, and then that's gonna be it for now. I would like you guys to like, comment, and subscribe, and go follow me on Twitter at Brian_Spadafora. And until I make the quarterback video I'm planning on making, I bid you guys adieu.